What's going on, gang? How's everybody doing today? Excited to get this thing started up. Give everybody a minute to join. And if you happen to be watching this on replay, I appreciate having you here. After 24, 48 hours, I'll have some timestamps in the description. So if you are tuning into this in syndication, you are welcome to skip around. I'm looking forward to getting this thing started. The second one in 2 weeks that we're running here, huh? All right. So we've got some people joining. What's going on? Justin, good to have you here, brother. DDBR, what's going on, brother? Good to see you, man. Zuderman, good to have you here, brother. Hope you guys are all doing good. Looking forward to getting this thing started. So, it's going to be a little bit different than really any of the shows that I've run before. I usually don't have like a prepared topic, you know, but I thought this was important, so I wanted to take some time to address it. And I thought to myself, you know what, this would be a great opportunity to do it in a live stream. So the first, 15 minutes or so, we are going to do this prepared thing that I've put together. And then after that, I'm going to turn it over to you guys. We're going to take listener questions. We can talk about the main topic of, trying to figure out how to get labs done, or we could take it anywhere else. Anything bodybuilding, anything off topic. We can talk diet, training, gear. Of course, you guys like talking gear. I'd be happy to talk about that with you. And I see we have more people joining the chat here. What's going on, Max? Good to see you, brother. Eddie, good to see you, brother. Pain like Bane. What's going on, man? It's like we got Chris here. Yeah, we got a bunch of people tuning in now. So we'll get this thing started, and, everybody else can catch up later. Angry Listener, of course, he's with us. Hazel, what's going on? And Yov, what's going on, Yov? Always got Yov with us. Thank you, brother. I appreciate having you here, man. And Lewis, you're freaking awesome. Hey, by the way, too, I would be curious, anybody who's watching this on replay, it's crazy to see how many people we have from literally all over the world that tune in. Whenever I ask, we always get just the coolest responses. I hear this guy's from Sweden, and this guy's from Paris, France, and this guy's from Detroit City, right down the street from me, so it's cool. I'd love to hear where you guys are from, if you want to chime in with that. And like I said, we're going to start out here for the first probably 15 minutes. I think we're going to talk about this main topic, which is trying to figure out how to talk to your actual medical doctor about getting labs done, basically helping to get insurance to cover some of this stuff, getting testing, more advanced testing. Sometimes it's a lot easier if you have a doctor behind you that's willing to sign off on that stuff. What's going on, Stefan? Good to see you, brother. Eddie, Mark, everybody here. All right, we'll get this thing going. So yeah, we got Los Angeles, California, and Manchester. See, that's what I'm talking about right there, guys. So listen, anybody who is tuning in who doesn't know who I am, I don't want to make a big to-do about everything, right? I'm just a guy who absolutely loves the sport of bodybuilding, and I have been coaching full-time now for the last 10 years, meaning that's what I do with all my time, basically, besides hang out with you guys on the podcasts, is I'm helping people to reach their goals, be it, building muscle, be it getting into good shape, being it like, being able to like play with their kids in the park and run around with them, or getting on stage. A lot of people have a lot of different goals, and that's what I've been fortunate enough to help people out with as my full-time job for the last decade. And I've been bodybuilding for maybe 20 years now. I got a late start, but it's something that I absolutely love doing. And we're going to talk today about, like I said, we're going to talk about trying to talk to the medical professionals about getting lab work done. And here's the thing, I'm a big fan of private labs. So like, let's get that straight first. I generally do go to private labs, as I'm sure a lot of you guys do too. It's like in the sport of bodybuilding, we can't depend on our doctors to do everything we want. And with that, I think it's important that we do have that availability at the same time for more advanced testing, especially when things get to be more expensive. And just to have somebody on your side that's a medical professional, I think it's important. So the reason that I came to the idea of doing this talk was from getting an email from one of our listeners that I work with. He's a client of mine. He's a medical doctor and he's a researcher. We're going to leave him anonymous here because he does all of that. He's very respected in his industry. At the same time, he is also a gear user. And so he sees both sides of this. He understands, what we run into, the kind of the gray area, as he's termed it, of being an enhanced athlete and trying to navigate the medical system. As you'll see, he says that the medical system really, it wasn't set up for us, right? And he sent me a big breakdown about better understanding where a medical doctor is coming from so that we might be able to better have that conversation with them. So I've taken that email, I've broken it down into a talk. And like I said, this is going to be a little bit different than what I normally do with our live streams or with our podcast. A lot of times you guys ask questions or we bring a topic and we just kind of hash it out. We talk it out. But I kind of have a little bit more of a prepared thing here today. Like I said, I took his email and I broke it down into a talk, and we're going to call that talk Why Your Doctor Won't Order Your Labs, Won't Give You What You Want, and How to Get What You Actually Need, because they can be two different things. So let's just break straight into this. And like I said, I took this from an email that was given to me by a medical doctor. He's a listener of the show. Oh, and by the way, like I said, I want to keep him anonymous, but he recently was at a big to-do conference. There was like him and I guess a dozen other doctors that all got together to put together what the way a particular new medication will be prescribed, pretty cutting edge medication that's out there. They put together the standards of how that will be prescribed at this conference. And guess what? Turns out he's not the only listener to our shows out of that group. So there's two of those guys are actually listeners to the Think Big podcast. So thank you guys very much. It's great to have you listening. And like I said, we'll do this for about 15 minutes maybe. And then after that, we're going to jump into listener questions. So if you have listener questions, hold on to them for just a minute. And then we'll dive straight in. And for anybody watching in the replay, we're going to have timestamps so you guys can jump around wherever you want. So getting into this talk, why your doctor won't just order the labs you want and how to get what you actually need. Let's talk about something that I think we've all experienced. You go to the doctor, you ask for specific labs. Maybe it's something that's advanced, or maybe it's something that's preventative. And let me paint a picture for you, because I think a lot of us have been through this. We've lived it. You've been running gear, right? You're trying to get responsible. So you decide, all right, I'm going to go in, I'm going to get my lab work done. You sit in the doctor's office, you're all ready to go through it, and you know exactly what you want to get tested. You say, hey, doc, I'd like to check my lipids, my hormones, my CBC, my CMP, maybe let's take a little bit of a deeper look at my heart. And the doctor looks at you and pauses and says, well, why do you need all that? And right there, you feel it. You're thinking, what do you mean? I'm trying to take care of myself here, doc? And that's where the whole tone of the conversation starts to shift. You start to feel like now all of a sudden you're being questioned, maybe even judged. And you walk out of there thinking this doctor doesn't get it, I think that instead of getting help, it's like we get met with resistance. And a lot of times people generally walk away thinking like, well, my doctor's just uninformed, or maybe my doctor feels threatened because I've done my research, or maybe my doctor's just an a-hole. And honestly, all those things can definitely be true, but there's more to it. There's a bigger, more complicated system. It's not just you versus your doctor. And that's what I want to get into first. And this is, like I said, this is all from the email that I had gotten really well laid out from a medical doctor who, is also familiar with us on the other side because he is a gear user. Let's start out by talking about the system that we don't see. Doctors aren't just there to set up whatever orders we want as patients. And it's not because they don't care, but it's because they operate within what's called a third-party insurance system, right? doctors have to deal with insurance just like we have to deal with insurance. And when we're talking to our doctors, they're also thinking like, how do I translate this to them? So, I'm starting out here, by the way, kind of talking about the problems, and then we're going to get to the solutions and how to talk to the doctor. So, now decisions aren't just about what you want or even what your doctor wants, but it's about what is considered to be medically necessary in what the insurance company is going to be willing to pay for. So when you ask for a test, tests in general, there's kind of a silent third party there, which is your insurance company, and they're kind of, quote, helping to make that decision. So that's one aspect of it. Another aspect of it is that there are risks that we don't necessarily always think about from the patient perspective. It's something that I think we can overlook, and I've seen both sides of that. A lot of people think, what's the harm in just running a test? Well, the harm is this, that every test is imperfect. Every test has a margin of error. That means that false positive happens, and when you get a false positive, you can't just ignore it. Like a doctor can't say, yeah, you know what, it's probably fine. Like then from there, it's the doctor's responsibility to then chase it down. That's going to lead to more testing, more procedures, more stress, more cost, all chasing something down that might not even be a really big deal. So, the doctors are trained to think about not just what can I do, but like, well, what are going to be the implications of doing that? And medicine has learned this the hard way. It's not just theoretical. As this doctor was telling me, medicine had already gone through this. They've seen it time and again with situations like PSA screenings for prostate health and routine breast mammograms. The goal was simple, and that was simply they used to do a lot more testing for those things preventatively to try to catch disease early on. But then what ended up happening was they didn't see any more meaningful increases in detection, but they did create more problems. There was massive anxiety, tons of false alarms, a huge increase in unnecessary biopsies. And those biopsies, they caused more complications. They created new medical issues. So in trying to do more, the doctors ended up doing more harm. And I think like their creed is to do no harm to begin with. I feel like as coaches, we should look at things like that too. If I work with somebody, I want to make sure that at the very least, I help add to what they're doing. Anyway, that's a whole other topic. Another fact is that you're not really looked at as a customer when you come into an actual traditional medical situation. It's a big mindset shift to how we approach doctors. It's that when you go to a doctor, you're not just a customer in the traditional sense. Doctors are not trained in the business of the customer is always right? They're trained to evaluate symptoms, assess risk, make medical decisions based on the appropriateness. And despite what a lot of people think, and I have no say in this, this is just what he tells me, in most traditional medical settings, doctors do not get kickbacks for ordering tests or prescribing drugs. That's more of a thing with certain cash models like concierge medicine and some online clinics. But in standard healthcare, he says that that's not a thing. So really the biggest mistake that people make is that, and this is where they go wrong, that they walk in with the mindset of, I'm paying you, so you should do what I ask. And, I'm going to tell you right now that if a doctor picks up on that attitude, they're generally not going to respond positively, because from their perspective, they're not there as gatekeepers to your requests. They're there to take care of patients and solve problems. So we covered the problems. Let's talk about the solutions. And this is what I've really wanted to get to. Let's talk about what we can actually do to get the doctor on our side. And if you want a doctor to engage with you, these are going to be the steps. So I hope you guys are getting something out of this. And if you are, let me know. I feel like all of us have stories of situations that did not go well. I could tell you a number of them personally. It takes time. I get it. It takes time to find a good doctor that you can trust, a doctor that's on your side. But here's the thing. The number one thing is that we need to change how we communicate. Instead of making requests, what he suggests is that we express concerns. So pay attention to that wording. This is where things get interesting. Doctors are wired to respond to concerns. They want to solve problems. They want to help. The wrong approach versus the right approach. A guy walks in and says, hey, I want an echocardiogram. Straight up, no context, no explanation. From the doctor's perspective, that immediately feels like, why is this guy trying to tell me how to do my job? Now, compare that to the same guy, same goal, but he walks in and he says, hey, doc, I've been a little concerned about my heart health. I've used steroids in the past, and I know that can affect things, and I've got some family history too. I just want to stay on top of this. Would an echocardiogram be a good idea? Now you're leaning into the doctor instead of, trying to tell them what to do. You're trying to like get them on your side. So same person, same test, completely different outcome. And now you're not demanding, you're collaborating. You're giving them a reason to care. So think about that. Think about like what their perspective is. That's the way we want to word it. Instead of telling them what to do, we try to get them on our side, and keep in mind, it would be even more appropriate. So he added this, and I like the way he worded it. I'm going to translate it because I think there's something he can't say that I will say. He said, and keep in mind, it would be even more appropriate to have such a test if you were experiencing shortness of breath, fatigue, chest discomfort. That's going to strengthen your case even more. Now, here's the thing. I don't think he can tell you that you should make up those symptoms, but maybe if you exaggerated just a little, it might help. I'm not going to say end yourself in the ER, by the end of that conversation, but if you play things up a little bit, I think that can go a long way. And you can just ask directly too. Like you can say, what kind of situations would make this test appropriate? So you see, you're kind of leaning into them more. All right. What else do we have here? At the same time, listen, all of this, it's not guaranteed. Of course, this is not a guaranteed way to get every test covered, but it does something more important. It creates a conversation where you feel heard, the doctor is engaged, and there's a plan moving forward. Even if you don't get the exact test that you wanted, a good doctor will start thinking more seriously about your health and how to monitor it. So, if you try all this stuff and it still doesn't work? I mean, if you express a genuine concern and the doctor still isn't responsive, then you can say it respectively. Hey, I don't feel like my concerns are being addressed, because here's an important distinction. Being heard does not always mean getting exactly what you asked for from the doctor's perspective, right? But you should at least feel like you were being taken seriously. And if you don't, sometimes the reality is simple. The doctor just isn't a good fit for you, and it's totally okay to find another one. In fact, I'm going to tell you guys firsthand, just recently looking for a particular doctor. I mean, with the internet today, you can go on your portal for your healthcare, right? You can find what doctors are available to you in your network. You can then go to Google, and I get it. This takes work. This isn't just all going to fall in your lap, but you can literally then go through those doctors, see what the reviews look like, even see what they look like. Is this an old doctor who's been doing the same thing for the last 50 years? Or is this maybe a younger guy who might be a little bit more open-minded to what we do with bodybuilding? You can start to make some inferences there. And then at the end of the day, you just have to give it a try. And if that doctor doesn't work, guess what? You can always schedule an appointment with the next one. And listen, the honest truth is that if we zoom out, if you really want a specific test, no matter what, the most guaranteed way to do it is to go outside of traditional medicine. Cash pay services, private labs, clinics that don't rely on insurance. But here's the truth. Medical guidelines, they weren't built for us. They weren't built for bodybuilders. They weren't built for enhanced athletes. So we're kind of operating within a gray space here. And, final thought to all of this, there's still value in having a medical doctor that you trust, even if you didn't get the test, someone that you can go to when something is actually wrong, someone who understands your health history, because even if we don't always get exactly what we want, they still play a critical role in helping to keep our health And honestly, sometimes that might even be more helpful than you might expect. So anyway, like I said, that's my talk. I hope you guys enjoyed it. And I hope that you guys can take something from that and, apply that to the future, because I do believe, like for me, I get my TRT from my own personal family doctor. I don't pay a clinic, and there's great benefit to that, right? Like she's not prescribing my testosterone through the roof. I get 200 milligrams a week, which is great. I don't always use 200, but I mean, it's nice to have it there. My tests are covered, right? My testosterone is covered. I basically pay the cost of my copay for insurance. And then I see my doctor every few months to get my refills. So, if you can get that type of a setup going, and you might not be able to do it right away, but big picture, I think there are benefits to it. So I figured I'd throw that out there to you. I also have stories of a lot of, oh God, the absolute opposite. I've had a couple cool doctors. I had another doctor who was a former competitor, and she actually kept her records on the book. And then she also had another off the book record. So, here's the thing too. One thing to keep in mind, he did mention this, is that the medical privacy is very important, but the one place that talking about gear could come back to bite you would be if you're looking for life insurance. If you're looking for life insurance, then you basically have to turn over all records, and that they will see that. So just keep that in mind too. But hey, I think that there's pros and cons and costs to all of this. And at the end of the day, just because you're a gear user doesn't mean that you don't deserve, valid medical attention. So I know we've all had rough situations with doctors, but I want to turn this over to you guys now and jump into some questions. I know you guys had a bunch of stuff last week, and I'm going to kind of catch up here too with everything else you guys said. How about this one? Kind of on topic here. What lab markers should I look at to decide if I should keep pushing my off-season bulk, like insulin sensitivity wise? So it would depend, I think, on what your cycle is, but I would always test your basic lab markers first. Let's say a lot of times we'll end up, like, just to give you an example, if I'm working with somebody who's doing an off-season, we'll probably have done labs before we start the cycle, right? Then from there, we'll probably do labs again 4 weeks in, or 6 weeks to 3 weeks, depending on what they're using, just to kind of check where their estrogen levels are. And if we reach about that 12 to 16 week mark, and it looks like things are like you're still in a good spot and it's still worth continuing to push, then we might look at labs one more time just to make sure that things like your hematocrit are in check. Now, insulin sensitivity, I think sure, you can test your fasted insulin levels, and that's going to give you some good insight. You can also test your blood sugar, and you don't have to test it constantly, but I would suggest maybe a couple times per week through the cycle, checking your fasted AM blood sugar, see where that's at. And then you can also test it like 1 hour, 2 hours postprandial, after like 1 hour and 2 hour after you've had a large carb meal. I would definitely do that away from training, because I think training is going to work as a GDA in itself. But you can kind of track to see, okay, well, here's what my blood sugar looks like before the cycle, and here's what I look like, 1 week, 2 week, 3 weeks, 10 weeks in. You could start to see if that's changing. Also too, I feel like with your sensitivity to carbs, we can also see it in your response, like how do you look? You should, even if you're coaching yourself, like we talked about on one of the recent episodes of Blood, Sweat, and Gear, you should still definitely be doing your own progress pictures. And with those progress pictures, you can assess, because it's hard to just look in the mirror and say like, oh yeah, man, I'm looking better. I'm looking bigger. My delts look rounder. Okay. Yeah, maybe they do. But, compare those pictures to last week, in the week before, in the week before that. That's where we really start to get, a more complete picture of where you're actually at, All right. I'm drinking some water with Crystal Light in it right now. Got the lemonade flavored Crystal Light. Love this stuff. What else do we have out here, guys? Yep. My doctor said, why would you want that? I don't even think he understood these labs, honestly. Luckily, he retired. I moved on to a new doc. She ordered some ridiculous cost to insurance company. Holy crap. You're not kidding, man. We were looking at one of the sets of labs Victoria got. They charge the insurance company so much more than, like, it really is. There's a lot of negative things about the healthcare system, that's for sure. My doctor yelled at me for asking for telmisartan. She was like, I'm the doctor, not Google, not AI. Yeah, I think that doctors are getting, and rightfully so, right? They went to a bunch of medical school, and now probably, it's not just us, right? We do pride ourselves on being educated in bodybuilding, which is important, right? But like everybody has AI at their fingertips now, and damn well if somebody's got something going on, they're talking to AI before they're making that doctor's appointment. And now the doctor is getting put up against AI on every single thing. Hey, I get it. We get it here, podcasting. People say, well, why would you do that? This is what AI said to do, I do labs like every 2 to 3 weeks. Holy crap, man. It's like a hobby. I'm addicted to it. Wow. That is a lot of freaking labs, man. What are you looking at, man? Labs every 2 to 3 weeks. That's a lot. All right. What else do we have here? When I look at a list of blood work that I wanted to get done a couple years ago, my old doctor said that I don't know what half of those even are, so I'm not going to order them. Okay, yeah, fair enough. Maybe that's not the right doctor for you either, right? How can I keep insulin sensitivity in check without hurting IGF levels? I already carb cycle, do daily fasted cardio, keep carbs only around the training window. Any other tips? So, okay. Now, I've seen this. I've seen even guys on growth hormone, right? I've seen IGF levels look one way in the off season on 4 units of growth, let's say. And then somebody starts dieting. They don't have as many carbs in their system. And IGF looks a completely different way. Like it's way, way lower on the exact same growth, exact same batch of growth. So it definitely, our diet does play a big role in that. But here's what I would say about that, man. I would say that IGF levels are only one facet. And literally every time that I've dieted somebody for a contest prep, unless they're like above heavyweight and like if they're really big guys, this might not be the case, but for somebody who say is an average height, we'll call it 5'8", and when they diet down, they would be like, we'll call it like 5% at 200 pounds. Like that's a lot of muscle. Like that is legit a lot of muscle. That's now granted, when you guys are watching pro bodybuilding shows, it's not a lot of muscle by those standards. But for the average human being, that's like a light heavyweight who's going to win a state level show, it's a lot of tissue. And I can tell you that in just about every case, that even though we know that IGF levels are probably going to get a little bit crushed while dieting, they still come out better than before the diet. So I think that in some circumstances, the body just wants to do what the body wants to do. Like, and by that, I mean that, I take somebody and I start dieting them, and over time, it just starts making sense which direction that body wants to go. Maybe you're in a position where better, because I'm always shooting for better, right? And sometimes better means less body fat. Sometimes better means more muscle. But generally, if the body wants to diet down, if we get that body into a groove, like we're keeping protein super high still, right? And you hopefully are getting some level of carbs. You're not dieting like brutally dieting out the gate, hopefully, right? Cardio isn't crazy high because all we need to do to start a diet is to lose 2 pounds, right? Lose 2 pounds of fat. That's all you need to do. And then we do that again next week. So you can keep the food, if you're keeping the food clean, you can generally keep it pretty damn high while losing a good amount of fat and still, make good muscle gain progress, regardless of where your IGF levels are. So I guess my thought would be is maybe don't be quite as concerned that IGF level is going to be the be all end all of muscle growth. I think that there's a lot more factors to it. And considering that I've seen people with lower IGF levels while dieting, they still made great progress. They come out the other side of that diet looking better, having more tissue, looking rounder, So I think that there still is some benefit to it. What else do we have here? What's your take on HCT labs being affected by dehydration? Do you feel sodium intake electrolyte packets can give you a false reading since a 3-point difference using 1 pack per labs? Honestly, I don't know, man. Would having better electrolytes make you more hydrated, and as a result, would your hematocrit be lower? I guess that's possible. But I haven't done like an actual test where I'm like, all right, your hematocrit's this one place, let's change the electrolytes and then go in again. I have seen people obviously show up dehydrated and then their hematocrit looks higher. But yeah, sorry, man, I don't have a better answer for you. All right. Hilarious you did this live stream today. I just did blood work at the end of this cycle. Thanks for the stream. We all appreciate the info. Glad to have you here. Let's see. Big fan of the channel. In my country, there are no sensitive estrogen tests available. Will this be a problem for me? I would say that, you know what, if you can just get E2 tested, that in most cases, depending on what you're using, but in a lot of cases, that should be good enough. As long as you're checking specifically E2 estrogen, I think that you should be good. There may be some circumstances where that's not going to work out. Oh, you know what? I did have to look a question up. We had one super chat last live stream that I did not get to, and I told the guy I was so sorry. So I want to make sure that I get back to him, and I'm sorry that I'm looking this up now. But like I said, this is important because the guy actually sent me some money. So let's see if I can find that super chat. All right, here it is. Yes. He said, hey, Scott, sent you 2 super chats during the live feed. Kind of screwed up sending my question. You winded up missing it. Sorry about that. My question was, what's your thought on taking a TRT dose of 150 milligrams of test and 25 milligrams of EQ weekly for estrogen control, eliminating the use of an AI? So, gosh, it's a pretty low dose of EQ. I don't know. What do you guys think? Let me ask you guys this. Has anybody successfully done that? I would think that at 150 milligrams of test, one should probably not need an AI, because it's not a lot, right? I would think at 150 milligrams of test, your estrogen should be pretty close to in range. And forgive me if you've heard me talk about this before, but not only do we have to be concerned about aromatization, we also want to be concerned with the clearance of estrogen, right? So, if you're not clearing estrogen quickly, then as you convert it to estrogen, then you're going to pool up more, right? And there's a process in the body called glucuronidation. It takes place from enzymes that are produced in the liver. So having a healthy liver is beneficial to help with clearing estrogen and eliminating waste hormones. We can improve glucuronidation through things like reducing stress, making sure hydration is good, making sure that you're getting ample sleep, eating good vegetables. Vegetables will help with that. What else? Liver health supplements, of course, could be beneficial. And specifically, there's one supplement, calcium deglucarate, which helps to create that glucuronidation process where it helps to break down estrogens and then, prepare them for elimination, which happens through our waist. So if you get constipated and you have waist estrogens all bound up in your waist and you're not going to the bathroom, maybe you're on Retta, then you may find that those waist estrogens begin recirculating in your system, which are now unhealthy estrogens, right? So all the more reason people, need to stay, regular as far as going to the bathroom goes. People don't like talking about going to the bathroom, but as a coach and working in nutrition, we talk about poop every day. Literally every day it's a conversation. So yeah, I would ask, do you really need EQ to manage 150 test? And if this is true TRT, where does 150 put you? If 150 is putting you, say, outside of the normal range, and that's the reason for then needing some type of an AI, then, maybe think about backing that down a little bit. But, as Dave Crossland would say, true TRT puts you in the natural ranges. That was a terrible impersonation of him. By the way, anybody here, did you guys go to the Arnold UK? And did you get to see Dave and Ron and Dusty? I'm curious. Comment if you guys got to hang out with them. And we got another super chat too. So let me pull this one up. This is from John. John says, asking about the oh, there he is again, man. Same guy. Yes. Well, thank you again for the super chat, brother. Yeah, man. I just honestly, I would say just consider, do you really need that much for TRT if it's pushing you out of range? And if it's not pushing you out of range, then why is your estrogen so high that you need to do something about it? Maybe work on the clearance of estrogen instead, using calcium deglucarate. And I would start with that. If you're running high estrogen, like say like on the US ranges that go up to 40, let's say you're at a like for 150 tests, let's say you're real high, like you're 80, right? If you're at 80, I would start easily with 1,000 milligrams of calcium deglucarate, and then I would wait a few weeks, and then I would test again and see where you're at, and you might want to bump that up to 2,000. And I would much rather go that route than add in another anabolic steroid. I'm not against adding in another steroid if that's what you wanted to do, like if you're interested in running a TRT plus, but you specifically said you're looking for TRT and managing TRT. So in that case, I'm a fan of then trying to bring it down to like legit. And here's the thing too. For most people, I honestly believe that you can make all the freaking progress you need going on cycle and then coming back down to legit TRT between cycles. I mean, realistically, you're going to be off for 8 weeks, and that 125, 150 test, it's going to be plenty to manage that for that period of time. Retool whatever you need to retool. Maybe you're adjusting training for a few weeks. Maybe you're recomping for the last few weeks. You get into that next cycle, you never really had a chance to lose anything, but by getting your levels back down, you're able to repair things, like bring that hematocrit back down, get that in range. It's hard to get hematocrit. If you have your hematocrits at like 58, 59, like those numbers start to get a little bit concerning to me, even though we're not as concerned about hematocrit as we used to be. When you start pushing 60, yeah, I'm starting to get worried about things like clots. Yeah, not to mention just the discomfort that we can experience with high hematocrit. Just that increased pressure of having all that freaking blood packed in the same size bag, right? Put an extra pint of blood in the same size bag and you're going to feel more pressure, right? So anyway, yeah, you bring it down to true TRT for just that period of time. It gives you enough time to let everything kind of normalize, and then you can go back onto the next cycle strong and with everything in check, All right. What else do we have here? I think we got another super chat come through. Man, you guys are freaking awesome, by the way. Thank you for hanging out with me. This is fun. All right. How about this one? All right. We got Josh with us. Let me bring this one up. Josh says, "Hey Scott, I'm in a wheelchair and I've been on 150 tests, for 12 months. I would like to up the dose, but due to limited movements in leg, potential clots concern me. Would 300 milligrams be a safe dose? Thank you." Dude, I don't know if you're familiar with the Mutant team. Sorry, I got to grab my nasal spray here. It's springtime, and my sinuses are going haywire. So pardon me a minute, guys. In fact, I can even probably... No, I'm not even going to put you on mute. Oh my God, he used nasal spray on the podcast. So unprofessional. All right. James Berger, he just won the Arnold Classic. And before that, he won the Olympia in the wheelchair division. He is pretty cool, and he's on an awesome streak right now. I can't believe... I mean, he's got a decent amount of muscle, right? I can't believe he's like 138 pounds, something like that on stage. And that's because he doesn't have any lower body. You know, he's paralyzed from the waist down. Honestly, man, I would say, I would say reach out to James, because he's a really nice guy, and he would be happy to talk to you. And I feel like he would give you some more feedback that has been researched than I can on this topic. You know, I mean, 300 test overall, I'd say, hey, you know, that's not a high crazy dose. And what does your blood work look like? You know, that would be a consideration. You know, but I would say talk to him. And in fact, I'd be happy to message him too over on Instagram and let him know, hey, you know, Josh is going to be reaching out to you. And he's a cool guy. He's you know, he wasn't always who he is today. Like I can tell, like he's like, I'm just a guy, you know, I had this accident, but I still love, you know, I love training, and it turns out I'm pretty good at it. And now he's competing. Like it's a cool story. I don't think he pushes a ton though, to be honest with you. I don't think he needs to push a freaking ton of gear, you know? But overall, I think the number one thing would be, you know, still looking at blood work. But yeah, I wish I had a better answer for... I'm kind of racking my brain, and I'm trying to think, like, is there anything? You know, I can tell you that in general, when we talk about clots, one of the things that all of us can take advantage of is nattokinase. And nattokinase also is beneficial for breaking up plaque too. I can't run a ton of it. I'll end up getting nosebleeds. If I run like 6,000 FU, that's what it's dosed by, is by FUs. If I run 6,000, I'll blow my nose, and then I just instantly, my nose will start gushing because it will kind of thin your blood out. And I've been told that 6,000 is a good dose for dissolving plaque. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to go for that. You know, my calcium score was pretty freaking great, but I'm like, it could be a tiny bit better. So let's push it. I can't do 6,000, but I can do 4,000, and sometimes I back it down to 2,000. But I think that anybody who is using gear, especially if your blood tends to run a little bit thicker, you know, you are going to be at more risk of getting a clot. So I think running something like nattokinase or serrapeptase would be a smart idea overall. If you guys aren't on that stuff, I would highly suggest it. And I'll tell you what, John, keep me posted too. Like I said, I'll message James when we're done with the live stream here. James Berger. He just won the Arnold Classic. He might just be traveling home right now from the Arnold UK. I'm not sure, but I'm sure that he would have some good insights for you. So I'd like to connect you to him. All right. What else do we have here? How about this one? Would going from 80 milligrams a week of TRT to 100 or 120 make a noticeable difference? I mean, I guess it depends what you're looking for. You know, we talked before, if you guys remember, I did a live stream several months back, and I called it like the levels of performance enhancement, because years ago, it used to just be you were either using gear and you were on cycle, or you were natural. There was really no in between. And Then we came into the TRT crowd, and then we came into the TRT plus crowd, and then we came into the guys that were kind of like, yeah, I want to run gear, but I don't want to do crazy stuff, you know, average gym bro cycles. And then we came to like the super sauced guys. So it depends on what you wanted. 80 to say 120. Are you going to notice massive muscle gains from that? Probably not, you know. If you go from, I'd say 80 to 200, yeah, you notice a decent difference. But if you really wanted to, so there's a point too that, you know, we have these conversations. People are like, you know, 5 milligrams of Anavar is plenty. Yeah, if you want to get like an enhanced feeling in the gym, yeah, 5 milligrams is going to be plenty. You get like a little bit more hardness to the muscle. Is 5 milligrams going to do what 60 milligrams will? No. You're also not going to deal with the same side effects of 60. You could probably run 5 for longer. But if your goal is to lay down as much freaking tissue as you can, then 60 is going to be a much better dose for you. If your goal is to be as big as possible, then definitely that higher dose is going to be more beneficial. The difference between 80 to 100 or 120, it's not that great. You know, it's not that great. I just don't see that as being like that big of a world changer. I mean, as it is, 80 is pretty low for TRT. But hey, if it's got you in range, man, more power to you. But I would say personally, like if you wanted to, my vision is if I were to go from TRT to then increasing it to actually gain muscle, you know, and here's the thing with bodybuilding, guys, you might have noticed this in your own experience if you've been doing it for a while. You tell me, if you shoot for the stars, you might reach like your first tree branch. You know what I mean? It's not like shoot for the stars and you'll reach the sky. And no, like shoot for the stars and you might like get a foot off the ground, you know? So my thought has always been to try as hard as you can to get to your goals, right? Put like everything you can, shoot high and be happy with what you're capable of. Because man, most of us, like, we have to freaking work to make any kind of progress, you know? So I just throw that out there to you, man. All right. What else do we have here? Scott, are you into motorsports like F1? No, I haven't done any of that stuff. I would love to have a motorcycle personally, and every year at this time of year, I start getting that itch where I'm like, man, it'd be fucking cool to have a bike, you know? Some years it'd be like a Harley, you know, big old hawks. Blah. Other years I'm like, man, I want to get Ducati, you know, something fucking ripping fast. And then other times I'm like, yeah, Vespa, just to kind of putt around town. That'd be fun. That'd be cool. Put Victoria in the back. We'll, you know, ride around a little town or something. And then 2 months go by and it gets really hot out. And I just crank the AC in my car and I'm like, screw that. There's no way that I would want anything other than AC right now. So, yeah. But I do love riding four-wheelers in northern Michigan when I get the chance, man. I love doing that off-roading stuff. That's a blast. Hi from Italy. What's going on? What else do we have here? Question about switching from Retta to Humalog in a cutting phase. Trying to manage BG between meals, 300 pounds, 14% body fat. So if you're 300 pounds and you're 14% body fat, you are a big freaking dude, Peter. That's all I got to say to that, first of all. Oh, I know you. I know who you are, Peter. Yeah, you are a big dude. He's got, if you guys can see his shirt here, this is a shirt. That's in fact me with him. Let me see if I can blow this up. He's got it doesn't get any bigger than that. His shirt says I Heart Tren. It's the best shirt of the Arnold Expo. That's great. So, all right, let's talk about switching from Retta to Humalog in a cutting phase. It's interesting because I understand they both work on blood sugar, but I kind of see them as different tools. Trying to manage blood sugar between meals. So you're on 780 carbs right now, which is a pretty hefty. The slowed gastric emptying is not my friend, even at 0.5 milligrams. All right. I guess because it's going to be a pretty individual thing. If you're talking about a fast-acting insulin, I think you said, yeah, Humalog. I mean, generally, let me just explain how I would oftentimes use Humalog. And I mean, realistically, it can be used with Retta too. But it sounds like the gastric emptying isn't working for you. And it sounds like you are in a growth phase right now too. So I wonder what the deal is with your blood sugar. Why are you struggling to manage it? If you're not clearing blood sugar, then I just wonder like what's going on with insulin sensitivity. And granted, you are on a lot of carbs, so that would make sense. But honestly, I would start with a large carb meal with 2 units of Humalog, and then I would see how do you respond to that. You probably know how you respond to that without the Humalog. I'm assuming you've seen your blood sugar 1 and 2 hours postprandial from that meal, right? So I would start there. I would just start with 2 units in one meal, and just work it, build it out from there. See how you work out with that, and maybe you go to 2-3 units, right? And maybe you go to another meal then 2-3 units there, and just kind of start to get a feel a tiny bit at a time. I wouldn't look at this as being something that I would like, we're going to get in and correct the whole thing overnight. I would look at it in steps, because I'd also want to see how does your body respond to this? Is it to your benefit, or are you in a position where it's just time to pull the food back a little bit? I don't know, But yeah, I would start with just one meal as an experiment. I'd want to know what my blood sugar looked like after that meal, 1 hour and 2 hours past that meal. And then from there, I could start by adding in just a couple units of Humalog with that food, see how it looks 1 hour and 2 hours after. Maybe you want to up it just a little bit, see how that looks. And then from there, once you're comfortable with that, go to the next meal, and I would try to keep that dose microdosed with meals, basically, is what I'm getting at, as low as possible. Looks like we got another super chat here, so I'm going to jump into that. And hope you guys are all having fun here. Oh, just a thank you from number 74. Well, thank you, man. I appreciate you, brother. Yeah. W74W Tungsten. Huh. That's cool. Thank you very much. And I didn't see, did any of you guys comment about being at the Arnold? Scott, when using Arimidex, how often should I dose it? Is once a week fine? And how can I deal with estrogen rebound when stopping use? All right, Josh. Well, I generally split it up depending on what the cycle is. If we're doing, say, 2 shots a week, which who does 2 shots a week anymore? You guys all like splitting it up into every day now. I know. But let's say that somebody was doing 2 shots a week and the dose we were looking for was 1 milligram a week. I would probably take it the day after my shot. Speaking of which, I'm due for a shot today. So just reminded myself. I'm turning the test up just a little bit, guys. I'm going to see if I can, get back into a groove of building a little bit of muscle, getting in a little bit better shape. So we'll see how it goes. I'm just getting started this week. So I'll keep you posted. But yeah, that's generally how I would space it out. I'd space it out, and I like to get it in there either 12 hours or a day after the shot. Somewhere in there is pretty good. What else do we have here? Can you use fast-acting insulin during a prep? I only keep my carbs around my workout during cuts. Yeah, dude, absolutely you can. But you know what I would do first is I would check my blood sugar post-workout, because you will find that the leaner you get and the harder you push, even if the carbs were the same. Like let's say let's say you're getting in 45 grams of rice pre-workout, 25 grams intra, and 45 grams post. You're eating enough carbs that you could probably handle 2-3 units of insulin without a problem pre-workout, right? But, assuming you're eating that meal, the way I'd bookmark that, or bookend that, by the way, is I'd eat that pre-training meal 1 hour before training, then take the insulin 5 minutes before training if I'm using Humalog. If I'm using Humulin R, I'd take it IM, and then 2-3 units. And then from there, immediately start drinking that shake, 25 grams, intra-workout, along with some EAAs. And then post-workout is no more than 1 hour after the workout is over. I would want to know what my blood sugar looked like that 1 hour after the workout was over before I added insulin in, And as you get leaner, let's say those carbs didn't change at all, you may find that blood sugar gets lower and lower. You might find that you don't have enough blood sugar to take it anymore, which is fine too, And then maybe you experiment with just using it on load days, because I think any diet that's effective is going to have some sort of a cyclical approach. There's going to be some sort of a higher point, and for some people, adding insulin in on that higher day could be beneficial. For other people, it might just lock them up. I've seen people where we've added that insulin in, and we're just using it just like real scientific. We're just clearing blood sugar between meals, and he's eating extra carbs in each meal. And then we find out, like, after that, he is so freaking loaded that his weight doesn't want to come back down, and fat loss has just stopped. Then we realize, like, oh, so insulin isn't for everybody, But yeah, I'd say start low with your experiment, and definitely it can be super beneficial, in fact, during a cut. Nathan, he says, what do you think about 280, 140 test to Deca to 500, 280 test to Deca for 6 weeks, then 500 to 350 test to Deca for 6 weeks for a 12-week cycle? Would you put on muscle if I'm eating well and training well? So, all right, we're talking 280 test, then 500 test, 500 test. So basically, after 6 weeks, you're increasing the test about double, and you're not doubling, and you're increasing the Deca. Then after 6 weeks, you're increasing the Deca by 100, less than 100. Dude, I would just honestly probably run those doses straight, to be honest with you. Figured that those compounds are going to work out the gate, right? The minute you take those things, those anabolics, they're already in your system, but it's going to take time for them to build up. And nandrolone Deca, it has a slower, longer half-life. So it's going to be several weeks before that's actually built up. So I would suggest that you just started with your intended doses. Maybe, figure 500 to 300, something like that. And I just ride that all the way through. I would also want to know that I was able to manage my estrogen on that 500 test. Everybody's all for letting estrogen do whatever it's going to do, and estrogen's healthy for us. We don't need to control it. But you start adding nandrolone in there, and that's where we do start running into problems. When that progesterone, prolactin, when those things get higher, then we start seeing more sensitivity to estrogen. Then that's where we start getting issues that, like, hey, I never had a problem on 500 tests before, but now I'm getting gyno. Why is that? That 300 nandrolone is going to make a difference. So I definitely consider making sure that your estrogen is under control there. What else do you guys got for me? We've got 116 freaking people here. Hey, by the way, if you're enjoying this right now, would you please hit the like button? It really does make a difference. So I appreciate it too. So you guys are doing me a solid by doing that. And I hope everybody's having a freaking good day here. I'm having fun. By the way, I got a new light. What do you guys think of that over there? That purple light. Tell me, what do you think of this? Hold on. We're going to take a break here for a minute. So we can go to blue. Look at that. We got blue now. We can go to this. I don't think we want to do green. No, I don't think we want green. What about red? Oh, that's not bad. I haven't played with this that much yet. So you guys tell me, what do you think? I kind of like the magenta. Yeah, we might leave that. That looks good. I mean, turn it up. Boom. I don't think we want to turn it up that much. Turn it back down here. All right. Yeah, just like little chill, little magenta in the background. Just chill. All right. We'll leave that. Anyway, what else do we have here? The purple light looks great. All right, we'll leave it there. We'll leave it at purple. When did you start this? When did this start? I guess it started an hour ago now. Greetings from Germany. Love the show. What's up, Alpha One? Good to have you here. Sorry for so many questions. What's your thought on mini cuts during the off season? Useful or not? How long to do it? Can it be treated like a recomp almost? Thanks, Scott. It's a great question, man. So, I mean, honestly, in an ideal world, we don't need to pull back, right? Like, things are never going to work out the way we ideally would like them to. But in an ideal world, for the next, 30 weeks, you just keep gaining 2 pounds, 2 pounds, 2 pounds, and you still have abs by the end of it, right? Yeah, that usually doesn't happen though. So, and here's what I've seen is that let's say somebody is going to do an off season where they're going to do one cycle, take a break, do another cycle, take a break, and then cut. Like, I think that's a pretty good pattern. There might be a phase in the middle of that where you wanted to recomp. So let's say somebody runs a 16-week cycle and then they need to do some recomping. I would say, so we come off the cycle and we take 4 weeks to hold that muscle, keep working on staying. And when I say hold that muscle, that means like trying to keep the food up. We might shift some calories. Like we might change from some carbs to some fats to help protect insulin sensitivity by getting some of that, not just hitting the insulin button so many times, the natural insulin button, controlling blood sugar a little bit more, but keeping the calories up by switching some of those carbs to fats. And then for the next, say, 4 weeks, we might start to recomp, right? Like now we're preparing for that next cycle. We might continue that recomp through the beginning of the cycle. And even once you're on, then we can push a little bit harder. But listen, I think even in that phase, you are still able to grow muscle, kind of like I mentioned quite earlier. And I've shown you guys a couple examples of people who have done contest preps and came out the other side bigger. We looked at research a year or so ago showing that natural people were gaining muscle in a 500 calorie deficit. So and I've seen it. The example I've used has been my friend Vache. I've shown you guys the pictures where he literally dieted for 22 weeks, I think it was. I mean, we went to keto, we went to protein only at the end. He was a competitor and high cardio, got peeled, then went back to eating like trash. And 5 weeks later, he's filled back out. And I'm like, geez, he's bigger than he was before he started the diet. So yeah, I would say if you need to recomp, don't think that it's over. Don't think that the growth has stopped. If anything, as that insulin sensitivity gets better, you continue to grow and you continue to make better use out of the food that you're eating, So yeah, I'd say, is it a bad thing? Not at all, man. I was watching your AMA. This is from 19 Gizzard. What's up, man? Watching your AMA from the weekend, and I noticed that you were live. Hi from the other side of Lake Michigan. Ha, that's cool. And Skip's favorite Wisconsin city. Love it, man. Thank you for being here. All right, what else do we have? Can you use fast-acting insulin during a prep? Yep, we talked about that one. Question about switching. No, we did that one too. I'm scrolling my way up, guys. Keep commenting with questions. Anything you want to talk about. It doesn't even have to be bodybuilding. We'll talk about whatever you guys want. Just got prescribed extra strength Flonase. Does that stuff work? Let me know. When going on cycle, should I titrate up to 400 milligrams from 150 or just jump straight up? What about coming off, titrating down, or just stopping the dose? Great question. I would definitely just go straight up to where you want to be. 400 milligrams is not crazy talk, but understand that over the course of several weeks, your levels are going to continue to build. And at some point, you may begin to need some type of an estrogen control in there. So AIs have been quite demonized in the past 8 years now, I would say 5 to 8 years. Really, it's I think the fault of the TRT world. They're saying, oh, you shouldn't take Arimidex. And yeah, no, I agree. Listen, you shouldn't depend on Arimidex year round. We kind of talked about that earlier. But when you're on a cycle, we have super physiological levels of test. That's good. We're not looking for super physiological crazy levels of estrogen. So if you need to control that estrogen, it's going to be a good move overall. You don't need to go crazy. We don't want to destroy your estrogen levels, but if you're on 400 test, you might need a little bit of AI, maybe 0.25 milligrams of Arimidex 3 times, maybe. Let's say you're doing 2 shots, say Monday and Thursday, you're taking your shots. You could take Tuesday and Friday and Sunday, 0.25 milligrams of Arimidex, for instance, and then after 4 weeks, you could get your lab work done, maybe even 3 weeks, see where your estrogen is, and then, reduce that dose if you need to, or increase it if you need to. But I would suspect at 400 milligrams, you're probably going to need some level of estrogen control. You might not, you might be fine, but I usually would rather err on the side of caution versus end up in a position where now we have to fix a problem versus focusing on just being your absolute best, being a monster in the gym, focusing on nailing your diet, all of those things. I'd rather be able to focus on those things than now we got to deal with gyno or something. What else do we have here? I second the Hematocrit question. As a cyclist with Hematocrit at 49 down from 51, I'm very interested in Dave's suggested EQ test is a good combo for a cyclist, but nervous about Hematocrit impact. Thoughts? Oh, okay. The original question was, what Hematocrit level is the cutoff that you think you have to donate blood? All right, man. So if you flashed back about 7 years, people would say anything out of range. Anything out of range is unhealthy. And now the attitude has shifted to, because here's the thing is that if you had high hematocrit and there was no reason for it, then there's a chance that you're having some type of a health issue. We know though, if you are running high test and you have high hematocrit, then we know what the issue is. You're running high test. It's not something your body's doing on its own. You're running high test. And so people have kind of become less concerned about it. But I think my number one qualm with us, all of us, I'm putting myself in that bucket too, is that we get so extreme with everything. We're I mentioned with Arimidex, that there was a time that you took a cycle, you had to take a bunch of Arimidex, it was a 1+1 thing. It was an AB thing. You had to do it. And then it became this never take Arimidex. There's no, we aren't good with middle ground, are we, guys? We're not good with middle ground. So we went from your hematocrit should never be out of range to high hematocrit's fine, So what's fine? Does that mean that, okay, so let's say that are you at just out of range, or are you at 52? Okay, that's probably fine. How about 54? Is that still fine? Yeah, probably fine. 56? We still fine? Okay. You're going to be good with 56? You've been at 56. All right. How about 60? Now, what about 60? Are we, where do we draw that line as to what's not fine, you know? So that's kind of the question I pose back to us, you know, like if high hematocrit's fine, because I'll tell you what, is the minute you ever say anything nowadays about bloodletting or about hematocrit, you instantly get the response, oh, you don't have to worry about hematocrit. High hematocrit's okay. In fact, so get this, reference ranges are based off of averages, right? Like that's why we have the reference ranges we have. And if a TRT clinic saw a different average than the rest of the population, they can justify changing their average. And I work with some people who go to TRT clinics where instead of having 50 as their cutoff for hematocrit, 55 is the normal range for theirs, because that's what their average patients have, is higher hematocrit. I would say honestly that what's been said to me by somebody that I respect was that if you're not above 55 and you're not experiencing negative symptoms, then you're probably going to be okay. You know, it's when we start feeling like that analogy I made, you know, if you're trying to squeeze if you're trying to squeeze a 13th pint into a 12 pint bag, you know, a skin bag, then, you know, you might be feeling some additional pressure in your body. If you bend over to tie your shoes and your face starts throbbing, you know, that you might be a little bit high. Or you go to walk up a flight of stairs and you get gassed real easy and your heart's beating in your face. Yeah, you might be that might be a little much for you. I know that I've had high hematocrit from dealing with the long bug, and I've had high hematocrit from having run no less than 300 tests for a couple of years in the past. So I know what it feels like, and it gets to a certain point where it's not comfortable, right? So I would say if you reach that point, then maybe it's time to do something about it. Is bloodletting the answer? I mean, we're told that when you do therapeutic phlebotomy regularly, that your body will respond by producing more red blood faster. So if that's a thing, then we've got that to look out for. Contrarily, I'll tell you what, I noticed that, so I did therapeutic phlebotomy for a while, and therapeutic phlebotomy is different than just going to do a blood donation. Understand that, okay? Like I was at 57, 58, and I went in for therapeutic phlebotomy, and my hematologist had me scheduled to go in for the first month once a week, okay? So I'm dumping a pint of blood every week for 4 weeks. And then after that, once a month, okay? So doing therapeutic phlebotomy to bring your blood levels down, if you really want to make a difference, you're going to have to do it a lot more frequently than just once every 8 to 12 weeks or whatever they allow you to do, you know, through blood donations. It's a nasty commitment, man. Like they're jamming that freaking big old, I don't know what it is. I don't even want to know. Is it an 18 gauge needle that they stick in that thing? Oh God, dude. It grosses me out just thinking about it, honestly. Sorry. I'm serious though. You know, there are other things to consider, is that if you are running that high, maybe bringing it down to legit TRT might not be a bad idea, number one. Also, supplementation, nattokinase for sure, right? Like we already talked about. Another consideration would be IP6. Now, it's not going to be a game changer, but if you take 3,000 milligrams of IP6, that's going to help to chelate to iron out of your system. Reducing that iron is going to help to reduce your hematocrit. Now, I noticed that when I did do regular phlebotomy, legit, true therapeutic phlebotomy, and I was going in once a month, that my ferritin and iron levels went down, okay? And I asked my doctor, I was like, oh, my iron's low, I'm anemic now. And he said, no, that's okay, because iron is what sends the signal to your bone marrow to produce more red blood. So by dropping my blood like that, I also kind of cut off that cycle from producing it faster because now my iron levels were also lower. So it was a way to help to keep that under control, you know? But yeah, man, I got to tell you, it's just not a way to live, going in there and donating that frequently, or, you know, bloodletting that frequently. It's not fun. What else do we have here? Got a bunch of stuff still, don't we? All right. Do you have any knowledge about or experience with Metaform hyaluronic acid cytin enhancement? I actually do have some personal experience with others, and I can share that with you. It's not a topic that comes up super frequently here, but yeah, I didn't get anything out of it, honestly. So here's the deal, and I'll tell you guys the whole story. So it's when that company first came out, they sponsored one of the, I used to produce podcasts for a company called Project Bodybuilding. And the people from Metaform approached us at Project Bodybuilding, and they approached me at my current channel, which was Advices Radio. And they're like, hey, we want to sponsor you guys. And I said, well, you know, let me think about it, because I wasn't familiar with the product yet. It was new. I didn't want to take a sponsorship unless I really believed in the product. So he sent me out a bunch of the stuff, and I'm like, okay, guess I'm going to try site enhancement, you know? Now, keep in mind, I did do SEO, like painless pumps, once before as an experiment, which also was terrible. Like it was not fun. And the problem with that was the volume of oil that you have to put into a muscle to actually change it is like absolutely ridiculous. I can't remember what my protocol was, but it was not nearly enough of using like traditional site enhancement oil. I was doing biceps, and I started a contest prep in 2015, I think it was. I think that was the year I used it. But this is traditional SEO. And I was putting it in both heads of the bicep. And I think that I worked up to something like 3 mils per head a couple times per week. I think that a lot of guys were using it like every day. Like, and the muscle just didn't feel right. Like, it felt sore from the injections. It felt sore from holding the oil. I could totally see how people would get infections from just pushing that much into the muscle. It was gross. And it looked like I basically had performed some sort of a surgery by the time I was done doing it. Because I've got like all these different syringes out, because a different syringe per head of the muscle, right? I would get them all 4 lined up, right? So I got all 4 of these syringes lined up. And then I've got my AAS, which was like 2.5 cc's. And then I've got my peptide. Like, it was a whole production, right? So I ended up running out of the stuff at like 6 weeks out from my show. And I was just like, you know what? I am done with this stuff anyway. I did get additional swelling in the muscle, but it wasn't really that, for all the work I put in, like, you really couldn't even tell the difference, which made me realize, like, holy crap, like, these guys that are like blowing their arms up like crazy, they are using a lot of that oil. Now, so fast forward to Metaform. You know, the directions said like 1 mil, right? And at the time, it was funny. They had this advertisement that they were playing on Project Bodybuilding, the channel that I was producing shows for. And in this ad, it said something like, you know, hyaluronic acid draws X amount of water, you know, into it, blah, blah, blah. It holds 500 times its weight in water, something like that. I can't remember what it was. So Scott Stevenson did the math on that. And he's like, okay, so if you take 1 mil and you multiply that by whatever crazy number was in the ad, he was like, you'll have 2 liters of water per mil. You will be not comfortable. You'll have to go to the hospital. Like, that's impossible. And they quickly changed the ad after that. Now, here's the thing. So I followed the instructions. I used the 1 mil, and I got nothing out of it. And then I started talking to other people, because there were people that were like, oh yeah, I like the stuff. And then I find out like, oh no, you don't just follow the instructions. You use a lot more than that. You use like X amount every day. And I was like, oh geez, okay. So here's the pro. Hyaluronic acid is definitely a lot easier to administer than like a thick oil is, right? The con, you still needed to use just as much. Like you had to really jam that stuff into the muscle. Like I said, I never noticed anything. I gave some to a couple guys that I knew that also had experience with SEOs. They didn't really get anything, but we weren't like really pushing it. You know what I'm saying? So I guess at the time, it was like 1 mil, per muscle per week or whatever. Like that didn't do anything. And then I found out you had to use a lot more than that. So I can't speak for the products they have today. That's just my experience with it back then, 2015 era. And I know that there's a lot of pros that even like it. They've sold a lot of that stuff. So, I'm just sharing my experience though. And I felt bad too, because, I didn't want to come out and like talk negatively about a product, but I kind of put myself in a position where I had to, because I told everybody, I was like, yeah, we're going to try it out. We're running tests and I'm going to tell you guys all about it. And I just expected to get the results, right? And when I didn't, then I was like, oh, fuck, now I got to tell everybody that, and I don't want to disparage a company, but that was just my experience with it. So I had to be truthful with that. Like I said, you guys talk to some pros out there, and see what they think. Now, if they have a code for it, then you got to question that too. You know what I mean? But you know what? We've got codes for stuff I believe in. So I don't think that everybody's just shilling. You know what I mean? All right. What else do we have here? He's had a huge weight loss this last 1.5 years, 450 to 250 pounds the last year. Been on TRT and wanted to add something else in to help fill out a little of the loose skin. Thoughts on what to add? Jiggy Vibe. It's quite a name, Jiggy Vibe. What's up, brother? And congratulations, dude. That's freaking incredible. You literally lost 200 pounds. I weigh about 200 pounds now. You literally lost an entire human being of size in a year, in the last 1.5 years. Dude, that's incredible, man. So I've worked with a good number of people who have made incredible transformations like that. And this is truly nothing short of incredible. Like that's a huge transformation, man. It's going to continue to tighten up that loose skin. Okay. Like that loose skin is something that is over the long haul. You guys may have heard me talk about UC Suma, a guy who I work with. I've mentioned him on some of the shows. He was obese. He was a big guy before he got into bodybuilding. And when he first got into shape, he probably had like a 5-6 inch fold of skin on his lower abs. Like I'm talking 5-6 inches. It was massive, right? And when he first competed, he actually figured out a way to like tuck it in to his trunks and then like even tape the skin down to like, kind of hide it. But as he continued, so we never, obviously we've worked together nonstop for 7-8 years now. And in that time, his skin continued to just slowly but surely tighten up. So, you're not done yet. Jiggy Vibe. You're not done yet, man. That skin, as long as you don't do anything to stretch it back out, that skin is going to continue to tighten up and continue to tighten up. And listen, it might not ever be 100%, It might not ever be like quote unquote perfect, but you know what? We all have flaws. Like I can look at myself and I can pick out all the things that are wrong with me. You know what I mean? And I'm sure some of our listeners will do that too. But for the most part, people don't pay as much attention to your flaws as you do. It's not as big of a deal to them as it is to you. And it doesn't, it's not as magnified as it looks to you. You know what I mean? My thought, man, would be to stay as absolutely hydrated as possible. You know, hydrated skin is going to have the best elasticity to it, and just continue giving it time, man. And over time, it's going to continue to tighten up. You know, what can you add in? I mean, gosh, I've worked with people nowadays that are using like GHK copper that are using that in an attempt to tighten their skin up. I'm using this topical GHK copper for my face, and I think it's doing something. In fact, I didn't put it on today, but it's just this like serum. You just kind of rub it in. I'm actually taking a minute to actually do it now. I wouldn't have normally done this on the show, but it came up. There we go. It's my beauty regimen for the day. And honestly, I started noticing a difference, but then I switched brands and I felt like the difference went away. So then I'm wondering, well, is it the GHK copper, or is there something else in this? Like, is there a hyaluronic acid or something, like a plumping thing that's, because we noticed like after a few weeks on this stuff, my wife was like, your skin looks like it's glowing. It looks way better. And then people started mentioning it. They're like, what are you doing different, man? So but the injectable version, you know, I do know people that are using injectable GHK to help with the skin. Collagen would be another great tool to help with skin elasticity. That would help promote skin healing and repair. 20 grams, 15 grams a day of collagen. I used hydrolyzed beef collagen from True Nutrition. I get the unflavored version. I just mix it into coffee or any other drink. Works well. I'm trying to think though. I mean, people would say growth hormone. Growth hormone is really good for repairing skin. Would it help to tighten the skin up? I mean, possible couple units. And I know it's not answering your question because you said, what can I take to like fill the skin out? I'm thinking not to fill it out, man. I'm thinking let's not stretch it any further. Let's give it all the room it can to continue shrinking, continue tightening up. In over the big picture, you will continue to see those changes. I'm working with a woman right now who had a ton of loose skin on the glutes, right? First, it was more body fat, right? And then as the glutes tightened up, it left her with all this loose skin. And now I'm watching that skin slowly up like the back of her hamstrings. It's tightening up each week. It's just a little tiny pockets now. It's all that's left. So I would say that's what you want. That would be my thought, at least. You're doing incredible, man. And at 250, do you still have room to lose fat? That would be another question, would be, should you take it even further? Can you take it even further? I'd consider still dieting even, man. All right. What else do we have here? 150 milligrams a week, one shot per week might spike. Oh, okay. I think this is somebody who's responding to one of the other questions. What else do we have here? We're going to 80 milligrams. Nope, we did that one. Do you guys have anything else down recent? Build muscle to fill it out, Tina says. I wish I could find topical GHK in Canada. Yeah, I'm getting it through Parabolic. Oh, Marty says, your skin's looking awesome. I was wondering that too. Thank you. I appreciate it, man. I got to tell you guys too. So I don't think I've ever told this story. This is like, we'll go deep here. So my skin was never a problem. Like I had good skin overall, but I would get as like a teenager into my late teens, I'd get back knee. Not bad, but I'd get like a few pimples here and there. And then when I went on gear, I got bad back knee. Like, and it like I needed something to cure it. So I, tried everything, and I ended up getting Retin-A cream from my doctor, right? And so I at the time I was in my early 30s. I don't have any wrinkles at all on my face at the time. Like my face was still good. And I didn't have like any kind of acne damage or anything like that, right? So I'm using this Retin-A on my shoulders, and I read, smart guys doing his research. He's learning stuff that Retin-A is also used to reduce fine lines and wrinkles. And so I'm thinking to myself, oh, wow, so I could put this on my face too. This is a very expensive cream, and I wouldn't normally be able to get this, but why don't I take advantage of this? And like, I'll put it on my face, and that's just going to keep me looking young and youthful for years to come, right? So what happens? My face starts breaking out from the Retin-A, right? Oh my God. And so with Accutane, which a retinoid, you may find that you start breaking out worse before it gets better. So here I am putting this stuff on my face starts breaking out, and I just tell myself, I'm like, okay, yeah, so it's just pushing out all the oils, right? It's improving my skin, and it just needs to purge these oils, and once all the gunk is out, then it's going to get better and better. And guess what? It just kept getting worse and worse. And I'm just applying this stuff every day. And my face started looking like I got a chemical burn on top of it. So now I've got these like deep cystic bumps all over my face in my 30s, right? And it's taking on this like red, like chemical burn look too. So eventually I realized like I got to throw in the towel on this. My face physically hurts and it looks terrible. And then when it healed, I ended up with all sorts of acne marks. And I was like, oh, I'm going to be honest, that like it changed my life for like 3 years. My self-esteem, like my view on myself, like just went down to zero. I was like, oh God, I look terrible now, and I guess for the rest of my life, I'm just going to look terrible. Like like I'm going to look unlovable. Like, like you just feel like garbage. Right. I'm over that now. Like it definitely would be one of the things I would have done differently. And to a degree it's healed up, but it's still there. And I'll get people too. I don't know if you guys have seen it, but there'll be the occasional guy who's like, oh dude, your face looks so fucking terrible. You have got the worst acne, and like you look like you abused a bunch of just all the meanest people show up sometimes. You know what I mean? And yeah, it is what it is. But the good news is that I don't care what you think. I don't care. If you want to be that way, that's cool. Go ahead and be that way on your own time, because I'm going to block your ass. Never hear from you again. This might be a dumb question, but for pure muscle building reasons, does insulin sensitivity matter if you're using exogenous insulin to cover all the carbs? Yeah, dude, because here's the thing. It's a Band-Aid, basically. If your insulin sensitivity starts to go downhill, say during an off season, you're really pushing carbs, of course, yeah, it's going to, it's eventually not going to be as good as when it started, right? And in that scenario, you could start using a little more exogenous insulin to help Band-Aid it. But eventually, man, you just kind of run out of space, because what are you going to do? You're going to keep dosing more and more. Back in the day, we didn't use to microdose insulin like we do now. So generally, the old school method of running Humulin R would be 10 units with your meal one, enough carbs to cover that, and the next meal, because it's going to have an extended life, and then 8 units in the meal after training, or maybe I think it was after training back then we used to do it. Or I think I moved it to before training. But get this, so over time, you get used to that, right? And you're pounding this insulin, you're pounding lots of carbs. I worked up to like 20 units in the morning. 20 units pre-workout. and I still wasn't ever going hypo. You know, my insulin sensitivity was getting trashed by that point. I would say just do your best to not lose that insulin sensitivity to begin with. You know, that would be my goal. But not a dumb question at all by any means. Currently cutting. I dropped a 35-pound plate and broke my big toe in 4 spots. Oh my God. On 150 milligrams of test TRT with 3 IUs of Pharma GH. Should I increase my calories to maintenance during the healing and blast more GH? Damn, man. So first of all, Matt Farmer, I am going to hope for you, for your sake, because I got a follow-up question. Were you wearing shoes when this happened? Because if you weren't wearing shoes, I'm going to have to tell Ron about this story. And if you watch It's Just Bodybuilding, Matt, then you're going to know that Ron is going to have a field day with you. So please you're going to have to be honest with me, brother. Were you wearing shoes when this happened? And I'm sorry to hear that, dude. Like I physically feel your pain right now. And I have a story of breaking someone's thumb. I think I'll tell you guys that one, but okay. So you're currently cutting. Dude. Yeah, that sucks, man. It's funny how a toe or a finger can literally stop you from being able to do the things you want to do, you know? Like the toe, you can still do all of your training. The only thing that's really going to affect is lower body, and it's going to affect your cardio, right? But you should be able to still, even if you're saying a boot or something, you know, if you were in a cast or whatever, you can still hobble around the gym and train most everything. And you probably can even train some lower body, but I understand you're going to be limited to that. 150 tests, 3 years of Pharma. Should I increase the calories to maintenance? I think it's up to you, man. Do you feel like you can still, listen, if you were my client, and we were like, this is the kind of conversation I literally have with clients, you know, life crap comes up and then we figure out how to deal with it. If you were my client, then my thought would be to turn to you and ask you like, okay, well, what are you capable of, man? Do you feel like you can still push? You know, I'm going to assume that you weren't doing a buttload of cardio. I specifically wanted to say buttload. You weren't doing a buttload of cardio to maintain where you're at in your fat loss phase. If you weren't doing a ton of cardio, then maybe you can make up for that, man, by reducing a little bit more calories. I don't know, man. I don't think that would be a problem though, to continue dieting if you felt like it. You know, at the same time, if you're just feeling shot here, you could always pull back. We do have an episode with Kuba coming out this week where he talks about getting stabbed like 3 weeks out from a show and still competing. He's got stitches in his bicep, which I had to cover up, by the way. He showed us the stab wound, and I found out that YouTube would demonetize the video for like, you know, graphic nature or whatever. But yeah, anyway, I would want to talk to you further about it and figure out, are you able... What you got there? What is that?
Just right.
What is it? Oh, thank you. I got my bars in the mail. All right. I'll show you guys my package here. We'll do a little unboxing later. I would still think you could diet down. I don't think it would be a problem. I will say that the growth hormone will add to healing. I can tell you that I had a tooth implant. And when they do a tooth implant, they have to freaking pull that tooth out, right? And then from there, they prepare the site with PRP. And they then need to give it time for the bone to heal, because they want that jawbone to completely heal over, and then they freaking drill into the jawbone and they put a threaded post in there, and then they can put the fake tooth onto it. So I go in to get this done, and I remember asking the doctor, I was like, he's like, yeah, because we need 3 months for the bone to heal, you know? And I was like, okay. I said, hey, I use growth hormone, you know, bodybuilder, I use growth hormone. Would that, you know, be of any help to me? And he said, well, you know, let me do some research, because I haven't had any patients that have done that. And he gave me a call later, and he was like, yeah, you should be okay. You can continue using growth hormone, you know, while the bone's healing. And in fact, it may even be beneficial for the healing to happen faster. So lo and behold, I come back, he drills, they literally drill into your jaw, right? And then they put the threads in there, and then they can put a post in there and all that. When he's done drilling into my jaw, he told me, he said, I have never drilled into somebody's jaw that was harder than that. He said, I have to think it was the growth hormone that you were using, because he's like, I'm telling you, I was using all my force with the drill, and I even had to change the bit. I have never had a jawbone that was that dense in my life. And this guy is an oral surgeon who's doing this stuff all the time. He said, I really think it was that growth hormone that you were taking. So yeah, growth hormone is known to speed bone growth and healing. So yeah, I think that you're onto something there to stay on that for sure, man. And yeah. Oh, and my story. What story was I going to tell you? Yeah. You guys know the chest supported? No, not chest supported. You know the like Cybex T-bar row stand where you like, it's a platform that you stand on, and you still are bent over doing T-bar rows, but you're standing on a little platform, and you drop it down between your feet when you're done. Well, instead of dropping it down between your feet, you can put a plate on the platform so that it stops shy. You know what I'm talking about? So I'm doing that exercise, and I'm training with 2 other guys, and you know, you're done with the set, and you just set it down on the plate, and it doesn't go all the way down to the floor. So I pick it up, and I've got my headphones on, and it's like my top set, and I'm pretty freaking hardcore, right? So I literally was closing my eyes and just fucking repping this thing out as hard as I can. And when I'm done, I just fucking dropped it down hard. And when I drop it down, I open my eyes, and I see Kerry standing there, and he pulls his hand back. I guess that the plate had moved, and he was trying to readjust it before I set it back down. And I literally just dropped that thing down on his freaking thumb. Oh my God, dude, I felt so bad. Just smashed his thumb. It was like you took a hammer and you just freaking pummeled it, dude. He still finished the workout, by the way, which kudos to him. But oh my God, man, it was bleeding out every part of his nail. Oh, it was terrible, man. Yeah, get the diamond drill bit out, Chris says. How do I keep my waist small as a classic physique competitor when pushing the insulin and GH in the off season? Dude, that's a great question. And I'll tell you what, I have personally really been delving into waist control this past year. And I'm personally in my own life seeing some cool changes, and I'm seeing it shape up for my clients too. What I found is that a lot of this has to do with breathing. And some of you guys may have heard me talk about this, but, you know, dealing with the long bug, I found, and I apologize if you guys have heard me go through this whole deal before. But dealing with that long bug, the long flu, my breathing got really crappy. And so what I ended up doing is I would just like belly breathe, right? And I'd take these big breaths through my belly. And as a result, I'm just letting my belly hang out. It's hard to even do now. There we go. Just, I let my stomach hang out all the time. Breathing like that, you know, through the stomach. And I started noticing, like, after 6 months, after a year, like, my stomach is getting rounder. Not a good look, right? Like, not the look we want. And it wasn't until this past year that I really started to examine that further, because I've had all these issues with breathing. So I've retrained my breathing is the first step. Okay. Because I think that through bodybuilding, especially when we're bloated, if we're eating a lot of food, if you're using insulin in growth, you're pushing all that out. You're letting that transverse abdominal relax. That gets weaker. And that's what happened to me, is my TVA just got super, super freaking weak. So that my stomach's just hanging out there. Tina mentioned vacuums. So I've had people that have had a really bad TVA, and I'd prescribe vacuums to them, and we'd use a good protocol, and I saw some improvement, but it wasn't the freaking game changer that I wanted it to be. And I think a big part of it is because it's through their everyday normal life. If that TVA is weaker, then we just let that stomach hang out by habit. So, you know, you hear people say, like, is a waist trainer beneficial? And then some people are like, no, it's not, but it does remind you to keep your stomach in. I think that's the key, okay, is that, you know, if a waist trainer is going to work, and I'm not saying use a waist trainer, I'm coming back around to, I think it's a matter of retraining the way we just freaking walk around and carry our bodies through everyday life. So I started learning about what's called 360 breathing. And everybody told me, you got to breathe through your back, breathe through your back. And every time I'd try to breathe through my back, and my shoulders are going up like this. And that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be breathing through the lower lobes of your back. And finally, somebody gave me the cue. They said, imagine trying to push your love handles, the lower back, that love handles area, push those out to the sides, push those out as you inhale. And so I tried it, and I was like, I'm doing it now. And I'm like, holy crap, that makes sense. And it felt awkward at first, right? Like, because it's not the way I'm normally used to breathing. So I started practicing it. And what you want to do is you want to have a neutral spine position. So I'm not hunched forward. My shoulders aren't rolled forward. I'm also not sitting back. You know, I'm just neutral position, neutral spine. And then as you inhale, you want to keep the stomach flat. I'm not sucking in. I'm not pulling in. I'm just trying to keep it flat. And then I'm breathing through the love handles, expanding those love handles. Okay. Now let's translate this to the plank. All right. So we're going to do 3 planks for 30 seconds every day, post-workout. End of your workout, get down on the floor, find a mat. I don't care. Don't use a mat, but get down a low plank on your elbows, keeping that spine completely straight, you know? And every time you take a deep inhale in, I want you to breathe through the lower back, keeping the stomach in. And then as you exhale, you can pull those lower abs up and in. Okay, so now we're adding the vacuum to it, basically. So in that plank position, 3 times, 30 seconds, focus on your breathing. That's, to me, been the foundation. And then from there, I expanded that. And I started going from 30 seconds of the low plank 3 times to, instead of 30 seconds, maybe then I went to 45. You know, I'm on my elbows doing the low plank for 30 seconds. And then I go up to my hands. And I'm in the high plank for 15 seconds, and I'm still practicing that breathing. And oh my God, I'm telling you that as you get into this, you start to, like, I started feeling a pump, because every time you're holding your stomach flat, and then every time that you exhale and you blow out, I'm taking those lower abs and I'm pulling them up and in further. Okay. And after doing that for a couple of weeks, I started to notice, like, I'm getting a pump in my lower abs, like they're feeling hot, and it felt good. Okay. And then I started noticing I'm able to translate this to other exercises. I'm able to brace differently now. So instead of pushing my belly out to brace like a power lifter, I'm able to brace while holding the core in tight. And I think that that's been part of it. I'm no longer just pushing that stomach out as hard as I can. I'm holding that stomach in. I'm just telling you what I've found to be super beneficial. And it all goes back to trying to work on that 360 breathing. So that's been what's worked for me. I've since added to that lying leg raises or leg drops. I'm not, because here's the thing. I wasn't strong enough to do a hanging leg raise at the time, honestly. I'm not doing any ab work. And then what? I'm going to do a bunch of hanging leg raises. I could probably get like 8 of them, if that, and it would probably look crappy. So instead of that, I lay on the floor, I put my hands, overhead, holding on to like the leg of my bench or the leg of my rack or the leg press. I just hold on to something stable. And then with my legs extended out, I'm lifting those legs up to the ceiling, and then I'm controlling them all the way down. And I'm keeping my stomach flat. I'm not letting my stomach like bubble out while I'm doing it. Keeping that stomach flat that whole time. I found that I could do those, even though I can't do hanging leg raises. I could do them off the floor. And I found I could get like 8 to 10 of them. And then my abs will start to get fatigued. So then guess what? I bring my knees to my chest. If you can't get more, then bring your knees to your chest. And what I found is, like I said, a 15 was good. And I'd do some of them with my legs extended, some of them with my knees up to my chest. But I would do 3 sets of 15. So now I'm doing the plank for 30 seconds to start 3 times. And I'm doing 3 sets of 15 on the lying leg raises, holding the core in through that whole thing. It takes like, 6 minutes, 7 minutes. And within a week or so, I was able to get all 15 reps with my legs extended. And then I was able to get all 15 reps with even slower control on the negative, It really has made a massive difference. I see the difference in every freaking thing that I do. Like just carrying groceries into the house, I'm bracing differently. And so anyway, I've shared this with some of my clients in their off seasons. Now some of these guys, they're dieting down, and I'm going to tell you, their waists look better than they ever have. Okay. Like these are the same guys that were just doing like quote unquote vacuum practice before. Like their waists are looking smaller than they ever have. So it's something I'm really passionate about because I've seen it making a difference in my own life. And now it's cool to see it in guys that are still competing, that because it really does. It levels your physique up. If you can control that core, and it's something you have to work on through your off season. So you're doing the right thing, man. You're in an off season using insulin and growth. Now it sounds, now is the time to work on this stuff. And then you'll really start to see the results later as you start tightening up. You'll feel the results now though. Like I'm telling you, man, it's changed the way my body braces. It's giving me better breath while I'm doing squats, for instance. Like I'm a much better squatter because of the core work that I'm doing. So man, it's something that I never gave enough credit for when I was actually bodybuilding. And I know that it would have made a difference. All right. Let's see. Thank you, Scott. I learned more from this podcast than I did in any of my classes today. What are you going to school for? 6 units of serostem heals bone grafts. Amazing. Nice. You know what? I've thought about that, Tina. I do have a few videos that I've sent to clients about those exercises, but I should do a video that I could release to you guys, put it out there. What would be the best add-on to test low dose Tren, EQ, and Anavar cycle? Wait, low dose on a test, low dose Tren, EQ, and Anavar cycle. I thought it sounds like Franz. It sounds like you have all the add-ons already. You've got your test with a low dose of Tren, EQ, and Anavar. NPP were Winnie tabs when it gains size, but not water weight. I mean, honestly, man, I feel like you've got a hell of a setup right there. You've got Tasty Q and Tren. Man, that's a freaking stack, my brother. I don't know if you need any other add-ons, but you know what? You could say you run that for, I don't care how long, but whatever you run it for, you could add an oral in for the last, say, 6 weeks, maybe even 8 weeks. And honestly, I've seen people doing really well with even lower doses of an oral. Figure you're already running a bunch of stuff, right? So what if you put in 25 Anaphar, to the tail end of that cycle for the last 6 to 8 weeks? And here's what I've kind of noticed too. If you've got a guy who's doing we'll call it like a 22-week cycle, like he gets in that first like 6 weeks, it's like everything's building up and he's like, everything's cranking. It feels good. I'm on cycle. The last 6 weeks is not quite as exciting, but I think if you add in that 25 Anavar, there's a morale booster there where you're like, yeah, now I'm on the VAR and that's helping me even more. So I could see there being a benefit, but I'd keep it, moderate, low dose. You don't need a ton, based off of what you're telling me here, I would love to ask Dave if 150 Tren is a good amount for TRT. Yes, Dave would have a field day with that. Add some L-carnitine, somebody said. Yeah, L-carnitine's a great compound. I never used to give L-carnitine enough credit, and it's because it was a 3cc shot back in the day. You know what I'm saying? That's a lot, man, especially if you're already using a bunch of gear. All right, I want to show you guys something. This is I just got a box in the mail, and like a real unboxer, I get to use a knife. This is a purchase that I made from a company called The War on Sugar. They have these bars. So here's the deal. I'm not on a completely fixed diet now, right? Like I'm eating consistently, but there are times when I'm trying to push and I need to, like, say, get something done. I don't have my food prepped, or I'm out of the house, whatever. And these bars are the freaking bomb. I'm not sponsored by them in any way other than I literally bought these. I know the owner and I'm a big fan of what he's doing here. This particular flavor is the peanut butter pistachio protein bar. Here's the deal too. I like the taste and the flavor. And I got a sticker. Check that out. Got a War on Sugar sticker. That's cool. Maybe I'll put that on the microphone or something here. Yeah, but I'm a big fan of these bars. So you get 15 grams of protein, 7 net carbs, keto friendly. And yeah, they're soft too. I like these. But it's good. It's all like whole food ingredients. And it's sugar. It's the sweetener is monk fruit. My mouth is kind of starting to salivate right now. I want to eat one, but then I can't talk at the same time. So I'm going to put these away. But I found them to be like a really good little patch for me when, say I finish this up and I need to eat a meal, but Victoria says, hey, let's walk Maddie and it's going to rain in a half hour, so let's go walk her now. Then I'd be like, okay, yeah, let's go. But I'm going to eat a bar to hold me over because I can do that. I'm not on a fixed diet or anything. And if I get a few extra calories, I'm still in a deficit, believe me. Anyway, it's a side story. But it's just kind of something I'm into right now, and those literally just came in the mail. Oh, and I think it's like waronssugar.com. And because he is a friend of the company, or he's a friend of the podcast, the company he had a code, which was BNR, Bodybuilding Nerds Radio, BNR, which gets you a discount. And I think I signed up for the monthly subscription of the bars now, which also got a discount. So I want to say I paid like $25 for them. So yeah, anyway, let's see what else we have here. Do you think you need to add more or less protein while on gear? I digest carbs so much easier. And if I could get the same calories by lowering protein and adding in carbs during a bulk, it'll help. Dude, that's a great question. Now, I will say that I've generally wanted to keep the protein as high as I can. it basically the more protein we can assimilate, the more muscle we're going to gain, right? And this is a game of trying to stay, like the term anabolic is simply more protein going into the muscle cell than leaving it. So foundationally, everything we do is about getting more protein into the muscle cell. That's literally what bigger muscle is. It's the same amount of muscle cells. I mean, outside of hyperplasia with growth hormone, but hypertrophy is literally the same cell is just expanding and it's getting more protein pushed into it. And anabolic steroids, they help us to push even more protein into that muscle cell. So the higher you can keep the protein, definitely the better. I'm going to say that. At the same time, I learned a valuable lesson a couple years ago. I worked with a guy who had a genetic childhood kidney disease or disorder. And he was always careful with his protein intake. The doctor said, like, hey, you've outgrown it, you're okay. At the same time, he had never eaten the amount of protein that a bodybuilder eats. So I wanted to be careful with him. And I was straight up honest with him. Hey, like, I don't want to do anything that could potentially hurt you. I insisted that he went to go see his kidney specialist while we were working together on a regular basis to just ensure, like, hey, nothing is changing, right? But I found with him, we kept the protein low and in even low, like lower than I would have put it. And I found that he did really well with it. And it made me rethink the amount of protein that we actually need. I think what I've seen is it makes the biggest difference in our cutting phases because, if you're getting, say, 50 grams of protein 6 times per day, it's probably not going to add a lot of body fat, but it is potentially it is calories, and having those calories in there may slow down fat loss. So if you could sustain the same amount of muscle with, say, 40 grams of protein per meal, you may be able to then keep the carbs higher. It's all a ratio, and everybody is going to be different. But I would say, honestly, I would give yourself some room to play with it and see. Generally I try to keep protein high, but I wouldn't be opposed to experimenting and seeing, like, how much lower. I don't know, and at the same time, I think it's easier for all of us to eat carbs. You're not alone. Eating carbs and some fats, I think, are generally easier to consume than another animal source protein meal, like another serving of meat, another serving of chicken breast. But I think too that if you get creative with your cooking, you put some love into it, you can make some pretty freaking delicious meats. I've known some bodybuilders that just absolutely gorge on meat. In fact, I've heard stories about them too. Guys like Branch Warren. I remember hearing stories from what's his name? Brian Dobson, saying, oh yeah, Branch and I would go hunting, and I'd bring meat, from one of the boars we had killed, and oh my God, Branch, he'd just eat pounds and pounds of it, while they're out there camping and hunting. Branch was known to go through some freaking meat. So, but yeah, I'd say it's worth experimenting with, and I wouldn't cut it by a major amount, but hey, I'd say be open to maybe you reduce 10 grams per meal. Just see what happens, man. Does it give you the room to then add more carbs, and does that work for you? Okay. The other end of the spectrum, I'll say this, that people who tend to be more sensitive to gaining fat are probably, you generally, if you raise the protein on them, it's going to be a safer macro to raise. You know what I mean? Like, if somebody tends to get fat easily and you add another 50 grams of carbs, the likelihood versus 50 grams of protein, the likelihood of them adding more fat with that 50 grams of carbs would be, higher. So I think that sometimes we can push those protein numbers up higher as being like a macro that's almost like it's not going to add body fat, So anyway, I hope that helps, man. Can I optimize hyperplasia when using GH? I've heard Phil Viz say things like high volume translates to hyperplasia. I don't know about high volume translating to hyperplasia, but I mean, the way I understand it is that growth hormone will increase hyperplasia, basically taking satellite cells and turning them into what we want, right? I think that that's definitely possible, right? What would your death row last meal be? Damn, man. You're going to do that to me, Nathan? There are so many good foods out there, guys. It's hard to make a decision like that, right? Sometimes I just want to eat something real simple. In fact, some days it's like I could just go for fast food, Although that said, a couple weeks ago, I wanted Taco Bell. I was like, I haven't had Taco Bell in years. And I know I'm going to go drive by a Taco Bell today. I'm going to get me some freaking Taco Bell. My problem with Taco Bell is there are so many different items on the menu. I just get locked up because I don't know what any of them are. I'm like, I know what the tacos are and I know what the soft tacos are, but I don't know what your like mega chalupa supreme is, like, I don't know what that is. Like, I'm reading all these things. I'm like, do I want that? So then I end up blurting out like 3 things, right? I ordered like 1 fancy taco or burrito and then like 2 taco supremes and a diet Mountain Dew. And they're like, okay, sir, that's $19.53. Pull around. Like, I just ordered 3 tacos and a Mountain Dew, and this is $20? Like, Jesus, Taco Bell is not cheap. I don't go to a lot of fast food, all right? But, man, fast food is not cheap anymore is what I'm gathering. I mean, I know nothing's cheap anymore, right? Skip did a video with Phil Viz on training the TVA a few weeks ago. I should check that out. I'd like to see that. All right, what else do we have here? Easy Crunch Wrap Supreme every time. That's funny. One of my clients and friends, Andrea Watson, she loves the Crunch Wrap Supreme. I got one once a couple years back, and I was like, yeah, it's all right. Yeah, they are basically a variation on the same thing at Taco Bell. I know, like they're all basically, they taste the same, slightly different textures, right? Is there such a thing as too much high IGF? My IGF on 4 I use during a cut with no carbs was 543. I'm now on 10.5 with ample carbs, and I'm going to get blood work. I have a feeling it's going to be ridiculously high. Yeah, dude, I bet it is, man. I mean, so we can talk about IGF, like in the role of bodybuilding, it's freaking awesome, right? Like, yeah, we like IGF, we like hyperplasia, but then on the other side of things, like if you look at the true like longevity people, because there's like a couple forms of longevity. There's longevity that's like all I'm using peptides and TRT and growth hormone, all of that. There's that longevity. And then there's like the true longevity people. And the true longevity people, those are the people that are using metformin. And they're using metformin because it's supposed to extend your life because it lowers IGF. All right. So there are people out there, like the true people who are in that crowd. They want you to have as low of IGF as possible because IGF is related to aging, and there was Dr. Rhonda Patrick, who's been on Joe Rogan. I don't know if she still has been, but she's freaking cool. I like her a lot. she did, I think her dissertation was on IGF, and she had a talk that she called the IGF trade-off, and she talked about these mice that they had one group of mice that had high IGF levels and one group of mice that had low IGF levels. Now, the group of mice that had low IGF levels lived longer. The group of mice that had high IGF levels developed more muscle. So here's the benefit, though. They didn't live as long. So the IGF trade-off is that you may live longer, but your quality of life may not be as high with low IGF. So there's a balance in there. And I think I'll go back to the earlier statement I made that I don't know if I believe in extremes. You know, is there maybe a middle ground in there? I don't think that IGF is the be-all, end-all answer. You know, because when we look at these things, we kind of, like, especially through podcasts and stuff, we learn about this one, like, and the way I see it is, like, think about like a bar of equalizer, like an equalizer with all the little different knobs to turn, all the little levers. And we're looking at just one of those levers, right? That lever works in concert with all the other ones. Like there's no real benefit to like this one treble equalizer way over here without being in concert with the rest of them. You know, so I would say that I wouldn't take any of those equalizers and just take it all the way up to the top and think that that's automatically going to be beneficial because it's going to be better because there's more. You know, I think that there's a lot of factors to consider, and IGF is one of them. But, you know, there's so many other parts to having an optimized physique and being able to, like, at the end of the day, why do we want it? We want it because we're equating it to growing more muscle. So I'll go back to saying, like, there's a lot of aspects that it takes to have the physique we want. IGF is just one piece to the keys. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't say that like high IGF is necessarily awesome, but at the same time, we probably want some, you know, and if we're going to be good at bodybuilding, we probably want a little bit better than average, but do we want it like crazy through the roof? I don't know. I don't know if that would be necessarily a healthy trade-off, you know? So, but yeah, it sounds like you had some crazy freaking numbers, man. All right. What else do we have here? Tina says, I will take the quality of life every time. Yeah. I'm scared of my organs growing and blowing out my waist. Yeah, I don't think that that's necessarily a thing. I mean, we know like the heart can grow from bodybuilding, right? But like we look at like Dave Palumbo was the originator of Palumboism, you know? And if you look at him today, it's not like he has the like a massive spleen and liver. You know what I mean? He's not as distended as he used to be. He's not eating nearly the volume of food he used to either. Like, but like he's brought that waste in, you know? So if his organs grew, if you grew new tissue, if you now have, you know, lungs that are twice the size they were before, I don't think those lungs just shrink down when you stop using growth. So I don't think that's it, man. Yeah. Me too, Tina. Here for a good time, not a long time, but hopefully somewhat long. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, I want the balance. I want a good quality of life, but I don't want to cut it off any sooner than it has to be, you know, if I can help it. Using gear for about 20 years, currently on 50 Tren Ace NPP test probe 3 times a week and 500 milligrams of SIP. Was there a question in there, Justin? Okay. You just telling us, brother? Let me scroll up, see what else we have. You guys have any other questions for me? About this one. Hey, Scott. Curious to how fat burners and cardio should be used together or apart for different people. How do you implement them? And what metrics do you consider when combining them versus separating them? So it's interesting. Skip was talking about keeping his Clen intake after your AM cardio session. He was saying that if you take your Clen, it's going to be real easy to get your heart rate up. Something like that. I could see that. I could see that being beneficial. I've never noticed a massive difference personally. So I don't tell people, like, if you're going to do AM fasted cardio, you need to wait to take your Clen after. But if you noticed, yeah, you know, you're getting your heart rate's easily getting cranked up after you take Clen, and you hardly have to walk on the treadmill, then yeah, maybe that would be a consideration. But you know what? Maybe Skip and I use Clen differently too. I generally start with a really small dose, and we build it up over the course of 8-10 weeks. Versus I believe he uses it for like 3 weeks on, 3 weeks off. So usually what I found is the more you take, the more side effects you get, especially when you're not used to a given dose. If you have been taking 20 for 2 weeks, you're probably not getting like a radically, altered heart rate from that. By the time you get on when you get on the treadmill 2 weeks in, I don't think that you're going to be seeing a massive difference. And then after that, you've been on it for a couple of weeks. You don't really feel it at all anymore, which is fine. You don't have to feel Clen for it to work. Then you go to 40, right? And, maybe a day or two, it might have you a little bit more jacked up on your heart rate if you're doing AM fasted cardio. But other than that, I don't really consider it. I do consider them as the tools they are, but I don't consider like we need to keep them separated, honestly. What else do we have here? I have an abdominal strain where the oblique attaches to the hip. Anyone have experience with this? It's been 6 months now and it still hurts. Jeez, man. Dang, I'll tell you that when you strain anything abdominal related or ribs, if you crack a rib, if you strain something in the ribs, it takes forever to heal. That's for sure. Let's see. I think Tanya's getting close to her show. Just got home from the gym. Glad to catch the live stream, tuning in from Manchester, England. What do we got here? We've got 114 people with us. Hey guys, if you haven't hit the like button, would you please do me that favor? Because that'll help other people to find the show. Just helps to get me boosted up, and obviously it doesn't cost you guys anything. I very much appreciate it if you would please do that. And man, I've dropped 50. Oh, another guy. Oh, yeah. Another story. So we talked to the guy earlier who broke his foot, dropping the plate on his foot. He says, this guy says, man, I dropped a 50-pound metal plate on my bare toe before and didn't think it broke. And I didn't think I broke it in multiple places then. Just bruised my toenail for literally a year. Dude, I bet that felt really terrible too. Oh, Matt, you were wearing Air Force Ones. All right. Just making sure, man. I didn't want to have to call you out to Ron. Huh. People have told me in comments that I look like an ex-drug addict multiple times. I don't know what that even means. Blunt Force Tanya? She's having a conversation here with others. Started my first cycle 4 weeks ago. 350 test, daily microdosing, 6 months of TRT before that. Reached steady state now. Now it should start to kick in, right? Working with a coach, everything is locked in. Yeah, well, it's kicked in from the time you started taking it, but after 3-4 weeks of a long acting test, yeah, absolutely, man, your levels are gonna continue to build up, through that phase. All right. You know what else too? We were talking about hematocrit. Um, one of my clients was using methylene blue. I think he was using like 15 milligrams, and he really dropped his iron levels. It was I could see it being productive for somebody who had high hematocrit to be able to control your iron levels like that. I'm just scrolling up, seeing if you guys left me any other questions. And thank you to everybody who is hitting the like button. I much appreciate it. And thank you guys all everybody hanging out with me here. This has been a lot of fun. And next week, we're going to get Ron and Dusty back. They've been traveling. So that's what gave me the time to do these. Normally, I would be recording with them, on Monday Monday early afternoon. But yeah, since I wasn't doing that, I was like, yeah, let me do another live stream with you guys, hang out. I want to try to make these a more regular thing. All right, I'm not seeing any more questions. I think we covered them all. I think that was it, guys. Unless you had anything else for me. Any other topics that you want to talk about? The Nags just joined us. We've been using methylene blue in my chemistry lab. I told my teacher people inject the stuff. He did a bunch of research after telling him. I think people are drinking it or consuming it orally. Yeah, I'd like to keep doing these. It'd be fun. 2.5 milligrams of Retta, 50 milligrams of Tren A, Test P, NPP, and 500 milligrams of SIP per week, adding 100 milligrams of Cialis, and everything went bad. Causes, experiences, worse than usual effects from Cialis. So was it the 100 Cialis where everything went bad? Isn't 100 Cialis kind of a lot, guys? I want to say, isn't 20 a day like a high-end dose or like a standard dose? I know guys that use 5 milligrams. I had tried it for maintaining blood pressure at one time. And I knew a lot of people who found that a low dose of Cialis daily was really good for blood pressure. I found that it ended up making my nose real stuffy. And I was like, I don't like the way I feel on this. I'm going to stop taking this. And I ended up getting headaches from it too. That's right. Yeah, I got these crazy headaches. But you know what it did do? No, I'm not even going to talk about that. But it did do it. Yeah, it worked as expected. I don't know, man. I feel like that's a lot, dude. I feel like that's that's a lot of Cialis. That would be my thought. Do you ever put clients on SLU? PP332, it cured my chronic fatigue from the bug. I stopped after 8 weeks at 2 milligrams and still feel amazing. Matt, congratulations to you, my friend. Yeah, dude, I've had great experience with the long bug as a result, man. I was dealing with a lot of chronic fatigue. And you know what, too? When I stopped taking it, I noticed I dipped down, but I didn't dip down as low as I had before I had used it. So I do think there was some like beneficial, maybe long-term upregulation of mitochondrial function. You know, I think that I got something real positive out of it. In fact, you know, and I'm not quick to call things a game changer, but I would say for me, yeah, it definitely would fall into the the ballpark of game changer. And you know what? That was at 500 micrograms is the highest I went. You're at 2 milligrams, you know, not crazy talk, I don't think. So glad to hear that you're doing good, man. Taco Bell tip, ask the employees to make whatever they make for themselves. Ooh, you know, they get creative with the ingredients back there. Damn, that's a good tip. I like that. Oh, we got some super chats too. Oh, Yov, thank you very much, brother. I appreciate you, man. Yov comments on all the shows, as I know a lot of you guys do. And it's like you guys don't see it from my end, but you guys commenting, even if you're just like, hey, you know, enjoyed the show, or, you know, hey, you know, tuning in after my leg day, good to see you guys. Like, even stuff like that, it does help the algorithm. If you just like type a period and hit send, that's not helpful. In fact, those things end up getting like filtered out, and YouTube doesn't want to post them. But if you actually say something, you know, it does help, and all your comments, it really does make a difference. We're going on, I think, like 45,000. I think we have 45,000 subscribers now, something like that. Let me see, where are we at, guys? Let me go to the dashboard here. Yeah, we're at 44,800 and something subscribers as of the time we record this right now. So we should hopefully hit, you know, 50K this year, which is freaking cool. I don't know if you guys realize this, but when I first started podcasting a decade ago, I literally intentionally tried to not be easy to find. I didn't want people to find it. I wanted you to have to be on like enough of the inside to kind of read between the lines and find us. Like, it was not a good business move. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not the way to get to grow a big show. But I didn't want to grow a big show. It wasn't until, 2019, 20 that I was finally like, yeah, let's see if we can actually turn this into something. Let's try to grow the numbers. And I'm happy with this, man. If we can get 50,000 subscribers, like, to me, that's freaking cool. I mean, it's still considered a small channel, all right? But I'm okay with that, because I feel like all you guys that are commenting here, I know most every single one of your user names, you know, like, we still have a small enough community that, like, it's personal, you know. I like that. So I don't ever want to lose that feel. So anyway, and then we got Juicy 250. Appreciate you, man. He says, my first super chat ever. Just saying thanks, Scott. Thank you very much, man. Dude, I appreciate the hell out of you too, brother. And of course, I see you posting all the time here with us too, man. And I appreciate that. You guys are all freaking cool. I hope that everybody's having a good day. You know, I feel like every time I go on social media, like, if I hit the wrong buttons, I start seeing crap that I don't want to see. I start seeing political stuff. I start seeing things that, like, people, like, I feel like you're trying to force me to see your way right now. Or I see, like, you know, the president did this, or this was going on in the Middle East. And I'm like, oh God, like, sometimes I don't want to be forced to, like, deal with things sometimes. So if you go to my, like, it's funny, if you go to my Instagram, not search thing, but the, like, my page, like, it's all animals. Let me see if I can turn that down a little bit. Like, I try to, all animals and cartoons and stuff. It's, this is what my watch page looks like. There's all just, like, fun animal stuff. Like, what's this over here? That's a ridiculous pit bull. I want to see that when I go online. You know what I'm saying? So anyway, I'm glad that we can try to offer something that's not trying to assault your senses and, you know, manipulate you into thinking certain ways about politics or whatever else. I feel like you guys get enough of that. And I've had people tell me before, they're like, you guys have a powerful channel. You should use that to talk about these topics, you know? And I'm like, man, I don't think I want to be that, you know. I want you guys to be able to depend on being able to come here to have fun. You know, we need to, it's okay to be able to have fun in our lives, right? So I want our channel to be that. You guys can learn some stuff. We can have fun, hang out, talk about bodybuilding, talk about the stuff that we like. And then if you want to go out of your way to find that stuff, the other stuff, you can go out of your way and find that somewhere else. We don't need to be the people to force it down your throats. So you guys, you know, we all get enough of that. So anyway, I'm going to go eat some food. And yeah, hope you guys are having a great day. Hope you continue to have a great day. And if I can give you one piece of advice, it's find like gratitude for the little things in life. You know, yesterday I worked all day. You know, the weekends are usually really busy with coaching. And so I sat at my desk mostly the entire day, but the weather was nice. And at like 7 o'clock, I was like, okay, I'm done for the day. Like I had enough. I'm done. Done everything I needed to. The rest can wait. And I unplugged, and the wife and I took our little dog. We ran up to the grocery store. We got a couple of like little snacks, and then we went for a walk in the park. There's a nice park about 5 minutes from us, and we went for a walk and watched the sunset. And it was a nice way to like spend an hour, you know. And then, like even that little grocery trip, it's nice. Like I have gratitude for those little things in life, and I appreciate, you know, if you can find that, if you can find appreciation for the little things, it's like life is pretty freaking good, you know. Like I don't know. Anyway, hope you guys are good. I'll talk to you soon. I'll see you back. We've got a bunch more stuff coming up, of course. I got a Cuba episode that needs to come out. So because I put this out today, drugs and stuff will come out on Wednesday. And then, of course, BSG comes out on Friday. I've got a Cuba episode. I've got a Muscle Minds that needs to come out. And, of course, then next week we'll be back with It's Just Bodybuilding 2. Love you guys. I'll see you soon.